Thank you so much, Baba.
It's my pleasure, but absolutely.
I love the grip of your handshake.
मेरा तो हाथ टूट गया थोड़ा सा.
So it's been quite a journey, Oxford MBA, from there a stand-up comedian to a motivational speaker, and then of course the happiness project. मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि पूरी जिंदगी में ना आप हर मोड़ पे एक अपने आप को इवॉल्व करते आए हो.
I think the greatest reason for any success I have had in anything I've done in my life are my parents, because they have always. My father was a tea planter. We didn't come from, a lot of means. He said, if you want to be a sweeper, you be a sweeper. But you should be the best sweeper in the world. That is what you should try and do. Right? So if I was playing cricket, sure, I enjoyed it, but I was playing so I could be really good. Not because I absolutely loved it. And it was quite late in life when I stumbled across comedy at the age of, I think, 28. That I was like, wow, this is amazing. I love this.
And it could be a career option.
I was very fortunate, Suparnaa, because I didn't realize how difficult it was to succeed in comedy. I didn't realize how limited the odds were.
Right.
Because I started off in the UK.
Right.
And in hindsight, had I known how low the odds were,
correct,
maybe I wouldn't have gone as far as I did.
It reminds me of a quote I recently read where it says that to be successful you need to be ignorant and confident. So it's almost like not knowing enough and still being confident about it.
I think that's exactly what you are when you start, ignorant and confident.
Correct.
Because I find that I'm less confident now, 14 years of having done it, than I was when I started.
The more I know, the less I know.
Yeah, because you just realize that the more you know, the more you realize how much more there is for you to know. And how little you actually know.
Right.
Sitting in India, you can walk into a gig in Delhi and, destroy the room and think, wow, amazing.
Right.
Then you go to the Edinburgh Festival and you see comedians from all over the world.
Right.
And you're like, do I even know how to do this?
Right. Have you seen a difference as far as the audience is concerned when they are attending, a stand-up comedian's performance in India as opposed to the West, because they are more exposed to something like that as opposed here?
Yes. So there are two aspects to it. One is audiences abroad who have seen a lot more stand-up are mature audiences.
Correct.
As comedians evolve, so do audiences.
Right.
And they expect better of comedians.
Right.
So comedians are also forced to evolve.
Right.
In our country, what happens is we have such a large population that a comedian can do some stuff. The audience evolves, and the comedian is not forced to necessarily evolve with that audience because there is another audience that has come and taken their place, and they're happy to still go with the same stuff.
Right.
So we have such a broad range of sensibilities. I think we are the largest democracy on the planet.
Yeah.
We are also the largest hypocrisy on the planet.
Okay.
We are very conscious of who's looking at us, laugh at what.
Okay.
Once you can get an audience to remove those barriers, you can take them down any path. In my experience with politicians, I find that most politicians I have met have a sense of humor.
Okay. Okay.
Politicians have a sense of humor.
Right.
Politics does not.
Got it. Got it.
About a year of doing stand-up in the UK, I did about 250 shows in my first year. I was completely broke. So I joined a recruitment firm.
Oh.
I used to work in the day, I used to perform at night.
Wow.
Then one of my clients there was a company called the Mind Gym. Now they do executive coaching stuff. So I trained as a coach with them. And that was fantastic. I used to tell them, listen, I'm free on so-and-so days, get me work. And they would say, okay, this company wants to run this workshop in this country. So can you do it? So with them I have trained, so in Europe I've trained Google, Nike, UBS. In the UK I've trained BBC, Universal Music.
Wow. I've been fortunate enough to be in the audience when you've performed and also the show
I have
Naked.
been fortunate enough to be in the audience when you are hosting as well. If you're watching this and you need a host who can control a room, this is the woman.
That was a completely uncalled for plug, but listen to it.
Literally, I'm serious. Literally, she'll be like, "Shut up, sit down," and all the CEOs are like, "Yes, ma'am. Can we start now?" No, the way you hold a room is phenomenal.
Thank you. I've learned sign languages. Thank you like this.
Oh, it's like that, is
Yeah.
it? Okay.
So,
Incidentally, just an offshoot, whenever we have a sign language interpreter, when we're doing a comedy show, we will intentionally look at him in front of the audience and say all the bad words we know. So we can see if we can do sign language for that.
I just learned, thank you. Okay. So, Naked.
Yeah.
Anybody who's seen it, I'm sure, is not left untouched or unaffected. Vulnerability
Yeah.
apparently is considered to be a vice in the larger spectrum of things, whereas I personally feel
Greatest strength you can have.
it's a virtue,
Yeah.
because it helps people empathize, right? Because they can relate to you, they've been through it themselves,
Yeah.
so it becomes easy.
Yeah.
But somehow the other, in the corporate scheme of things,
Yeah.
it's like you shouldn't be too vulnerable or you shouldn't show your vulnerable side.
Yeah.
What do you have to say?
So here's an interesting thing. I now do Naked for corporates and for leaders. I'm just doing a tour with the Entrepreneurs Organization,
Okay.
where I run it as a learning session,
Acha.
where I perform the show. Post that, we do a debrief. If it's a large group, we put them in groups to discuss what elements they possibly learned and lessons they could take away, and then we do a debrief. I think for me, the most important characteristic of any speaker, presenter, performer is authenticity.
Correct.
In today's world, if you're telling an audience something you think they want to hear, they can see through it. Right? So authenticity is key. And where vulnerability plays a strong role is today as a comedian, if I get on stage and say, you know what it's like when you're getting bored and you go and buy a 50 lakh rupee car. They don't know what that's like, right? Do you know what it's like when you get your heart broken and it feels like you can't piece it back together? It takes you years to recover from that, right? And the kind of things you do, the silly things you do when you're going through that. Everybody knows what that feels like,
knows.
right?
Yeah.
So when I'm performing
So
for an audience,
when you're bored, you go to buy a 50 lakh
No.
worth car.
of course not. I can't. Listen, hello, comedian. Right? I'm just saying, if you said something like that, it's not authentic, and they can't relate to it.
Yeah, got it.
So as a comedian, I don't need that person to think, oh, he's talking about his life. They need to identify with it. He's one of us. He's talking about my life. I go through, yeah, this happened to me as well. That connection is very important. And I think as leaders and people who run organizations, there are a lot of lessons that can be learned from, in this show Naked, I'm using the vehicle of my life, but it's a tale of the human experience, which is the same across countries, across cultures.
Correct. Is it true that there is sadness behind the laughter that is projected?
See, a lot of comedy comes from pain, right? There is not a lot of comedy in happiness. So in comedy we say that comedy is tragedy plus time. Right? And what I have found is that comedy helps me be a more positive person as well, because even when I'm going through something bad, actually in the back of my head I'm thinking, this is really bad right now. He's going to be amazing on stage in 6 months.
This is good content for me.
So I'm actually making notes saying, okay, I'm suffering now, but I am going to do jokes about it. Sort of introspected a bit, and I thought about, why I do what I do. And I get genuine joy out of making people happy. It's a common thread that runs through all the elements of what I do.
Exactly. When I was trying to, prepare myself for the show today, what I realized is your innate need or ability to be able to make the other person feel better.
My business card says Ambassador of Happiness. So last year I put an open offer out saying I'll do shows for charities. Did 7 shows in 6 cities across 2 weeks, and we raised about 45 lakhs for 10 different charities for a range of causes. This year I was inspired by a friend of mine's father, actually, who's in the hospital, in Parsi General Hospital, very unwell. And she called from London. I was visiting in Bombay, and she said, "Can you please go and see him?" And I went there and I said, "You know what? I'm going to perform for him. I'm going to entertain him in his hospital room."
Individually.
So it was just him and his wife. That's it. And I performed for them there. And the smile on his face from somebody who I knew had not been very happy for some time. I mean, it lit up that room. And there was something in me which said, that got into me which said, I have to do more of this. So I put out an open offer again in the month of May, saying anybody who has an unwell family member, I will come to your house, I will come to your hospital room, and I will perform, and I will do laughter yoga and whatever it is and make them laugh. And the satisfaction of those shows,
Right.
Suparnaa, is more gratifying than anything I have ever done.
Yeah.
I have had a man tell me that I have increased the lifespan of his mother.
Wow.
When I finished the show, I said, I lied to you about this being free, I want payment. My payment is every morning I need to receive a laughing photograph of you. He tells me after 3 days, he says, you know what? Now my mother wants to see the photograph before I send it to make sure she's looking nice.
Nice.
I mean, I cannot tell you how gratifying it is. I had a publisher who approached me and said, would you like to write a book? They saw the show Naked,
Right.
and they said, would you like to write a book? Then I figured out, if one publisher is interested, maybe another one would be interested.
Yeah.
So then I wrote to another one and said, would you be interested? They said, yeah. Then I wrote to a few, so I had about 4 or 5 publishers who were interested. Then each time I got an offer from a publisher,
So,
I'd go to the other one, saying, look what they offered me.
Nice.
Then they would raise their offer. Then go,
motivational, content positioning, brand positioning.
See, it's very simple. It's an ego trip, right? It is complete. Why do you write a book? There's no money in it for first-time authors, rarely, right? So either there is a story that you're dying to tell,
Correct.
right? Or it's an ego trip to see your name in print,
Right.
right? I'm already telling that story on stage.
Right.
So for me, it's to be able to walk past when you're going to catch a flight at the airport and see your face there, bestseller list.
Nice, bestseller list.
But no, that being said, jokes apart, I'm enjoying writing the book.
So for me, when I write, it's almost like catharsis. It's like I'm able to handle
Yeah,
parts of my life which
Yeah.
I may not have handled very well when I was going through it.
yeah.
That's not the case with you.
For me, performance does that. I process it, I take it on stage. And the beauty about taking it on stage, exactly like Naked, is you find 100 people in that room who are like, yeah, I've been through that as well. And I cannot tell you how many people after Naked have written to me about things like this.
No, of course, when I watched it, I sent you a text. And
Yeah.
then later on, I realized that you must be also so used to getting
Yeah.
so much of emotion right after
Yeah.
this, because it's new for the person who's watching it, but for
Yeah.
you've been there, done that. But doing it all over again every time, does that make it a little?
It's never easier. It's never easier because some of the things I talk about, which I cannot tell you here,
You gotta watch it.
is I don't know how it's going to hit me until I'm doing the show. Because as human beings also, sometimes when we go through some difficult stuff, we put in a box and we lock it away.
Right.
Right? But each time I take that show on stage, I have to open that box. And I don't know how I'm going to react to it at that point. In terms of being a public persona, I don't think of myself as a public
Oh
persona.
dear, bestseller, author and all
Not
of
yet.
that.
Not yet.
Not a public persona, I'm humble.
I don't. I mean, because I don't do a lot of media stuff. I don't do a lot of stuff online. Most of my work is live. And when you grow up in a middle class family,
You've done 1600 shows?
I think over 2,000.
And the
I
best
stopped counting.
comedian in India, the best in Asia, traveled across.
Marketing. No, see, I've always grown up having negative connotation with the word celebrity.
Why is that?
Because I've always associated it with all the page 3, how you are, which is not me, right? But I have a definition of celebrity which I can live with. And I believe that celebrity is a currency. And what matters is how you choose to spend it. So I would like to spend whatever currency I have trying to make people happier and improving the quality of their lives.
So when you were saying this, suddenly this question popped into my mind, and I must ask you, if you were given a brand to endorse, what is the best fit you think for you would be?
Kama Sutra,
Yeah, I knew it! I knew it!
So I don't know if this is inspirational, but it's a quote I always loved, which is, don't let the world change your smile. Let your smile change the world.
Wow, how beautiful is that? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, CJ. It's
My
been a
pleasure. Thank you.